Alright guys, I'm just going to give you a quick tutorial for what we went over in the lesson, which is how to make the vintage fire extinguisher. So a couple of things we're going to use in order to make this basic version is you're going to need a reference image. As I'm sure I've told some of you before, never work from memory, always work from eye. So all I've done is I've gone into Google Images, search vintage fire extinguisher, and it should be about the fourth one along, and we'll be making one of these two. What I'm going to try and do is get this up on Moodle for you, which is just a downloaded image, but if it's not, that's how to find it, pretty straightforward. Okay, I'm going to break this up into a few little sections just so I'm not bombarding you. So if we just get rid of that, start ourselves a new project. Okay, so first of all, what we're going to want to look at is the main body of it. Now we can make this in a number of ways, but I feel because we're looking at edit poly, the best way to do this is going to be using a cylinder and converting it. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to come over here and I'm going to draw my cylinder and I'm just going to create it. Right, don't worry about the initial creation too much, but what I want you to think about is how much geometry is in here. We've got well over what is needed for what we have so far. So we can jump over to our modify panel and we can start taking some of those out. Now what I want you to do for now is go right down to one height segment, because as you notice that's not affected how smooth the shape is, and drop this one down to maybe around sort of 12, because we'll be working as if this is going to be an asset that's seen but not directly used. So instantly, just from those two changes, we've dropped down from over 200 to below 50. Okay, so always make sure you're working from the 0 point. If you haven't created it using specific locations and just drawn it like I have, remember you can just right click on the axis down the bottom and it'll snap back to the middle. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is, because we're not really adding any more geometry in, is we're going to convert it to an editable poly. So everything's changed as you've all seen before. Now what I want you to do is start thinking about the shape of the object. So as you can see, we've got a pretty chunky cylinder here. Now this isn't exactly thin, but it's not that bulky either. So all I'm going to do is make sure I'm locked out to the X and the Y axes and just drag it up. And what that's doing is it's affecting sort of the width and the length, but not the height. So that's remaining as tall as it's ever been, but it's squishing it in a little. And there we go. So if I hit Z, we can sort of pan around that. Okay, the next bit is the sort of curve that happens at the top. So now we can do that in a number of ways, and I want you guys to start thinking of your own, and obviously in the lesson I'll be sort of walking around and helping you out. But just in regards to what we can do here, I'm just going to make sure I'm still in my modifier, and I'm going to make sure I hit 2. So I can do this either with edges, but I'm going to do it with faces, sorry. So I'm going to hit 4, I'm going to that. We're going to start using the inset tool. So I'm going to hop over into settings, and what I can do with this is I can start adding some geometry in. So I can add about 3 loops to this, so I'm going to go 1, 2, and 3. Okay, and when I'm done, I just drop out of that, maybe add one more in. Okay, there we go. Right, so what we're going to do now is we're going to just start pulling this geometry up to make sure that we've got the curve here. So what we're going to do is hop over into edge mode, and if you double click on something, it will find anything around that ring or that line and it will select it for you. So what I want you to do is make sure you select all those. Remember, you can do that by holding down Control. Sometimes it's a bit testy and you might have to do one yourself. So just make sure we've only got those selected. So this would be a good time as well to turn on ignore back facing, just to be safe. And all we're going to do is we're going to hit W, which is your shortcut key for move. And we're going to start, as you can see from here, what I'm doing is just pulling them up. And then all I'm going to do is one by one leave the previous selection behind. So now, as you can see, I'm trying to select everything in the middle. So if we just start with this one that sort of plays up a little bit. There we go. And then just double click that one. And then I'm just going to move that one up. Just keep looking at it from the side, making sure you've got a nice sort of curve going on. And then we're going to just drop down to the very last one. By the way, whenever you see my widget disappearing, that's the little move icon, just hit Q, which basically isn't select, rotate or scale, it's just neutral. And we're just going to pull that up. So there we go. We've got a nice smooth curve there, but as you can see it's quite narrow compared to the guy we got over here. So another way we can affect that is to do exactly what we did before, but this time use the scale tool. So just like before, I want you guys to just make sure you're locking it out to the right axis. Just think about what you're doing and just start doing exactly what we just did, but blowing it out a little bit. And feel free to sort of like pull these around a bit more, fine tune them as much as you need to. This is just me giving you the basics to do this yourself. I want you guys to make individual models yourself that's sort of unique to how you best think your practice is. So again, we can just scale that one out a little bit, like so. Okay. So now we're happy with that shape. We've obviously got this fella here in the middle. That's an n-gon. There are way too many edges on this, and because I'm not going to do any more with this, and I know I'm not, whereas obviously make sure you're happy with what you've done before you do something, I'm just going to inset it again so I'm not affecting the curve I've got. So that's going to give me some more geometry, and then I'm going to hop over to my vertex mode, and because I've got ignore back facing off, I can just sort of drag over the top and it's just going to select those verts at the top. And then all I'm going to do is I'm going to come down here. I know I showed this to a few of you. Top right on my screen, but it's under your edit geometry tab, and you're just going to hit collapse. And all that's done is if you look up the top here, if I do that again for you, it's dropping down the amount of verts and polys and giving us a nice finish to it. So everything has come to one point now. Obviously the other thing to do would be to delete the bottom, which we can go ahead and do now, because there's always a way to fix anything we've done, because we can use cap obviously if we want that back. And that basically, already, just a few minutes we've been doing it, obviously you can refine it a bit more, it's given us the outline for the model. So what we're going to do when we come back is we're going to look at making the top bit here, and I'll do that in the next video.